Lady Garden holders, we are here. Drum roll, please. Get ready for your 101 course in horticulture. We are going to prune the hedges and celebrate the launch of High Tea with Lady V. And you guessed it, we're talking about my favorite topics, vaginas and hormones. And I know you're just as psyched as I am. It's as if my whole body is going to explode right now. And I am super dressed for this occasion. Sweatpants and a t-shirt. Fuck, do I love podcasting. And who wants to be wearing tight-fitting clothes around their waistlines at this time of month or time of life? I was just talking to a friend and she suggested there needs to be some peri pants. Pants for menopause, like in pregnancy, but just not like sweatpants, nice pants that are comfortable. Muffin top friendly. If anyone knows of any, please drop the name in the comment section below. But I digress. I assume you're all 6 weeks deep into fun Fanny Fact Friday. And if you're not, log into the socials, High Tea with Lady V on Instagram, High Tea with Lady V podcast on Facebook, or join the Facebook group High Tea with Lady V. You can also catch us on TikTok and Twitter. I still can't call it X. Jump on there and educate yourself. It will 100% get you up to speed, or at least you'll have a good laugh. So, who the F am I, and why am I talking to you about vaginas? Well, for 42 years, I've been tackling the ups and downs of having one, and then the highs and lows of freaking hormones. But this doesn't make me special. No, this makes me a lady, and half the population are one. I'm a registered nurse specializing in cosmetics and anti-aging, but I hate the freaking word anti-aging, so let's call it aging better or aging well. My work isn't just skin and aesthetics, it's women. And listening to women's stories in my clinic and researching and connecting them with other women's experiences and specialists, that I realized we needed to create a space bigger than within the walls of one room, where we talk about the things that no one else talks about. We're talking no filters, no fluff, no apologies. We are going to be talking about our lady bits and what it's really like to age. And I also have a personal purpose to this too. It's my driving why. My mum has dementia, and at 75, she is living in a home. I carry one of the APO4 genes, which means I have a higher risk of going down the same path. Losing a parent is heartbreaking, but losing a parent to dementia, it is freaking soul destroying. So I have been on a mission, deep diving into learning everything I could about aging and wellness and aging well as a woman. We are talking brain health, hormones, wellness, new science and research, other women's stories of triumph and despair. I am deep in the trenches, and what I have learned is nothing short of fascinating. And sometimes it's actually really freaking disappointing, and it needs to be shared because there are some amazing breakthroughs happening in this space, and we all deserve to know about them. So why vaginas? Why hormones? And why am I so obsessed? For the past 42 years, like many of us vagina owners, we have been learning what it means to have one. And over the time, I've realized I haven't really been told much. How to navigate it, how to use it, what it's made up of, what it actually does beyond birth a child, the list of ailments one can acquire when they own one, and why. We probably don't even look at it until our gynecologist hands us a mirror and tells us to look and push simultaneously, a sight I know I'd rather not have burned into my retinas. And whilst we're navigating our vaginas, alongside them we are navigating our hormones too. And isn't that a freaking roller coaster that sometimes we prefer not to be on? But before I delve into the anatomy of vaginas and the freaking hassle of hormones, I'm going to ask you to think about what you were taught at school in those pivotal and formative years and what it meant to have a vagina, anatomically, medically, and emotionally. If you were born in the 70s, 80s, or probably the 90s, and maybe the early 2000s, I really hope we've progressed a little since then. I'm assuming your lady garden education was just like mine. Don't get pregnant. Don't let anyone touch it. Sex is for men. And did I mention, don't get pregnant? Oh, and don't forget, you've actually got a vagina too. And if you were one of the lucky ones in PDHPE classes, so personal development, health and physical education, you were also informed that you had a cervix, a uterus, some ovaries, maybe fallopian tubes, and some other things that you really didn't have to worry about until you were pregnant. But don't get pregnant. And then we also learned that one day our lives would change forever and we would get our dreaded period. No longer were we innocent or naive. All of a sudden, we are thrust into womanhood, and probably before we were ready. At 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, what the F did womanhood really mean? As any 12-year-old from the 70s and 80s would remember, the general consensus on this transition was we would get our period. We would bleed for 5 days or so, but don't be alarmed. You're not going to die. And this will happen every 28 days or so until they stop. When you're like so old, like 40 or 50 or something, and you're probably washed up by then, and then you can't get pregnant. And as if you would be even having sex at that age. Oh my God, old people sex, gross. So that pretty much sums up the total education that we received in the 80s. And bless the 80s. I wish it was that simple. And then we were sent on our merry way to navigate tampons and everything else in between on our own. This transition was not celebrated, more frowned upon. Oh, she's already there? Educated and talked about? Oh no, you got the memo above. That's all you needed to know, right? And if that's not enough that we are confused, embarrassed, and some of us ashamed of these unspeakable periods and the changes happening in our bodies, the jokes begin about how moody we are. Our families start to quietly whisper, she's on her period. And this second part really pisses me off, especially as a perimenopausal woman in her 40s navigating hormones all the fuck over again. We get our period and all of a sudden our emotions can be boiled down to that time of month. We no longer feel that they have any validity whatsoever, and everyone reins in on the period parade. Somehow, overnight, our emotions are no longer ours. They now belong to our period. And for the next 30 or 40 so years, we go on not really knowing much about our lady gardens, our cycles, our bodies. We just learn along the way of what's normal, what's not normal, and what it's like to become a lady. So this is why, my lady garden friends, we need to talk about our vaginas, our vulvas, our genitourinary system, and work out what the fuck they actually do and why it's important to understand these parts of the anatomy, not only anatomically, but functionally and mentally. We, my ladies, are going to get pussy educated. But first, I would love to read you a passage from the book Pussy, a Reclamation by Regina Thomas Hewer. I want you all to really absorb and ponder the message in this passage for just a moment and reflect on it. Regina writes, the solution for the epidemic of powerlessness among women, which neither great success nor higher education is able to solve, is simple. Just reconnect a lady to her pussy. It's the source of each woman's connection to her own life force, her voice, her sense of internal power. When a woman connects to her pussy, she's actually turning on her life force and connecting to her divinity. So let's break this down. There's an epidemic of powerlessness among women. It's not solved by achieving higher education, nor is it found in women's success. Women are lost. Who can relate to this? Regina suggests to solve this, we must reconnect women to themselves, to their anatomical differences in the world, their ability to create, their femininity as power. We need to regain the meaning of owning a pussy and celebrate it. It's a life force, a power, which gives us a voice. Think hard about the words and advice that were given to us as young girls and as young women. Were we ever educated on how to navigate the transition between girl and young lady? Were we ever told that now you're of age, you are now to be viewed as a prerogative object and no longer a girl? The transition from girl to very young woman is fraught with danger. And I beg you to ask yourself this question. Is this why many teenage girls become introverted, shy, and unhappy during these formative years? Is it because they are unable to navigate the changes and expectations placed upon them? The wandering eyes, the leering looks, and the struggle to form a new identity as a woman and no longer a girl. No, we were just told not to get pregnant. And the message we got as a young woman probably indicated that that would be our fault too. You're too provocative. You're too beautiful. You're too nice. You're wearing something too revealing. The transition from child to lady is never discussed. You get your period and bam, you're suddenly supposed to feel different, act differently, and miraculously understand what these differences mean, as you can get pregnant now. But in reality, many of us still wanted to run around naked with our siblings, wrestle with our brothers and cousins, play make-believe with our dolls, and cuddle with our dads and read books. But the message was clear. You're not supposed to do that anymore. Don't act silly around boys. Become more ladylike. What did that even mean? We were no longer privileged to the immaturity and freedom of our pre-period selves. And that 12-year-old girl starts to die. She starts to question herself, her actions, what she wore, what she said, what she did, who she spoke to. She starts to question her existence. Because up until then, she was just a free spirit running around, playing tips with the boys and girls, and there was no agenda. No one looked at her any differently. Men, they didn't notice us. Innocence for some was bliss. And now we have to be a lady. And all we wanted to do was be a kid. 12 to 18 was a hard time to navigate, let alone navigating our vaginas in silence. We were never taught the next steps in life, and we were never taught that our lady gardens were more than just vaginas, periods, and avoiding pregnancies. These little beauties have an entire ecosystem of their own. And ladies, we are going to deep dive into that ecosystem. And where do we start? Well, I'm going to tell you about the first time I got thrush, because that is one of the first signs that vaginal ecosystem is a little fucked up. Picture this. No, let's not picture this. Let's talk about discharge. Discharge. Were we told much about it? Did anyone firstly tell us we'd even get it, let alone which ones were normal or not? No. It was the 70s, 80s, and 90s, remember? We just get our period every 28 days until we're like ancient, and then we don't. What about the advice on frickin' discharge? It's different when you ovulate. It's different before your period. It's different after your period. There are so many differences. And then there are differences that you don't want. I hit the panic button. I thought, this is it. My life's over. My vagina's broken. I'm going to die. I rushed to the doctor, making an emergency appointment, sobbing that I was broken and dying. The doctor gave me some cream, assured me that I'd live, and sent me on my merry way. I lived. And I left the doctor's surgery a little bit more educated, but my dignity was in tatters. I had thrush. The shame. And come to think of it, I'd probably had it before to a lesser extent in my early teens, but I didn't know what the symptoms were. Gosh, this has probably affected almost every woman on the planet over the age of 13. However, back then, I didn't know what it actually was. But ladies, what I did know was how to avoid to get pregnant. Of course I knew that. And of course I knew about STDs. Don't get those. Wait, was thrush an STD? Shit, I have an STD? Like, was that even possible? Shit, I rang the doctor. Rest assured, no. Thrush is not an STD. Just in case you needed clarity on that, it's a fungal overgrowth of candida, which actually lives naturally in the bowels and some small numbers in the vagina. And when that little ecosystem is out of whack, we sure know about it. Wet swimmers, heat, menstrual cycle changes. There are those pesky hormones again. Oral contraceptive, iron, low, taken antibiotics recently. So basically life with a vagina causes thrush. And no, there wasn't internet phones back then if you're asking. I searched YouTube though recently and TikTok on advice on thrush, and wow, there is definitely more information flying around these days on the topic. But then young girls today are faced with another dilemma. Are we getting the right advice about our vaginas on TikTok? Food for thought. But as we know, even our more established lady garden horticulturists know, thrush is just the very tip of the iceberg. And if you've seen an iceberg, it's the underneath that goes really deep. I soon realized I was really pretty out of touch with my vajayjay, but shrugged it off. Who did know much about their vaginas back then? And I was definitely not talking about it with my girlfriends. That shit was private. And now I'm podcasting about it, how the tides have turned in the past 24 years, and what a fun 24 years it's been. There are so many ailments we are never told about. Vaginosis. Fuck, someone could have given us a heads up on that. Dryness. Chafing. Fucking chafing. That's another time I thought my vagina was broken. Endometriosis. PMDD. Twisted ovaries. Signs and symptoms would have been helpful. How to frickin' use a tampon would have been nice. The anatomy. What the fuck is the vulva? Isn't it all the vagina? Nope, ladies, it's not. Hormones. Wait, we don't just have estrogen? The genitourinary system. What the fuck is that? Incontinence. Not normal. And young girls can even suffer from this too, especially if they are highly athletic and putting strain on the pelvic floor. Think gymnasts and cheerleaders. Why do I feel so shitty the week before my period? Potentially this is due to the lack of estrogen and you're actually experiencing little mini menopauses every month. What happens to my vagina when, God forbid, I do get pregnant? Or pap smears. Oh my goodness. Who remembers their first time having one of those? I think I have PTSD every time I see a speculum. I felt violated. What the fuck just happened? And who on earth designed that little gadget? Surely not a woman. Well, I Googled it. Yep, it was a man. The first speculum device was a double-bed spoon, and the first experiments were done on enslaved women, who I'm sure were given the latitude to voice their concerns about the discomfort. And yet, we still use a similar device to this day. Go figure. Women have never been shown a clear medical path or been given a voice. We've been medically treated as subordinate partners to the male body. Yet we create freaking life. We grow these little fuckers. And we're supposed to have subpar bodies? Did you know that they've discovered that menstrual blood contains stem cells? And I'll probably pronounce this completely wrong. Mesenchymal stem cells, MSCS. And it has the potential for regenerative medicine and cell-based therapies. They exhibit high proliferation and differentiation, meaning they can grow, and differentiate change into various cell types, similar to those found in umbilical cord blood and bone marrow. We are talking about repairing damaged organs, liver failure, spinal cord injuries, treating disease. Ladies, when this news first came out, every cosmetic nurse that I worked with was like, should I be needling this into my face? Regeneration stem cells that are mine? I'll keep you posted on it. I haven't done it yet though. Or have I? No, I haven't. But really, does this actually come as a shock? Considering our reproductive system has the ability to grow life, shed, and regenerate every month, why not research this for stem cells? And further to this, there are some ancient Aboriginal tribes that actually kept menstrual clots to repair injuries. So what? Thousands of years ago, we knew about the regenerative effects, and now we're only just discovering this in the last 10 years? Does this really surprise us? Not really. Because did you know, women weren't included in medical trials until 1993. Yes, ladies, 1993. So those statins, heart meds, and other treatments, you bet they probably weren't tested on women. And surprisingly, these medications work differently on women, especially depending on where they are in their hormonal lives. Shut the front door. They work differently on men than they do women? Who would have thought? And we're only just now starting to see the pharmaceutical differences. Think about all the times as women we were told that our medical problems were all in our heads. Well, guess what? Those ailments are now being proven to be real symptoms of real conditions. Wait, women actually do have medical issues? We're not just being whingy women? Maybe we should have studied women more than just for our ability to bear children. Gosh, what a thought. We're medically different? Fuck, just ask half the population. We could have told them. But my question is, how are these revelations only happening in 2025? And yet we still have people questioning the difference between men and women. I was listening to a snippet of one of the world's leading female exercise physiologists who holds a PhD in women's performance and exercise. She also trains some of the world's elite female athletes, so she's pretty qualified. And she was discussing the difference in training for women, especially post-menopause and perimenopausal women, and how fasting affects these women. Among the thousands of comments were men chiming in, trying to debunk her expertise as an elite female trainer because they had spent a few days in the gym bodybuilding and now they considered themselves PhD specialists in female training. I don't think they were even considering that they can't grow babies or that they don't get their periods, or maybe they didn't realize the talk wasn't about men. Stop it. It wasn't about them. I will wash my mouth out. Apparently, they knew more about female training than the expert female exercise physiologist. They couldn't just stay in their lane. And to this point is what is wrong with the medical system. Men think they know more about women's bodies and have had us second-guessing ourselves for years. Oh, you can't feel that. Like, science doesn't suggest that that can happen. It must be psychosomatic. I can't tell you the amount of women that have told me that they have been to the GP or a specialist and have been told that it's all in their heads and given antidepressants and sent on their way. And this is not just privy to male doctors. Female doctors are just as guilty of this too. Recently, I was at a perimenopausal conference with a male professor presenting as the leading body on the benefits of HRT. When he was asked about the timing of HRT for women in their early 40s who have regular but somewhat shorter periods, however, were experiencing an array of other perimenopausal symptoms such as sleeping difficulty, genitourinary issues, and mood disorders, he informed us that they should just go on to antidepressants for mood disorders or the pill because she could get pregnant still. Did you know that? Even though we're in our 40s, apparently we don't know that we can still get fucking pregnant. And that's what it's all about. And then I spoke to the leading female doctor in this area from the US, and she angrily replied, most of the hormones used in the pill are synthetic, which have a chemical structure that may be similar but not exactly the same as the hormones produced by the body, and they're utilized in the body differently. While most HRT hormones are bioidentical, which stimulates the same hormone response that we actually produce. So it has an identical chemical structure to the naturally occurring hormones that are produced in our bodies. Also, when the pill is given to a woman later in life, it is likely to cause issues with her calcium levels. Think osteoporosis. We'll touch on this later. She then noted that the dosage of estrogen in the pill was far greater than HRT. So I'm repeating that. The dosage in the pill of estrogen is far greater than that in HRT. And it was more likely that these women would benefit from low dose of bioidentical estrogen than going on the pill and receiving high dose estrogen. She would also benefit, if she had a uterus, of going on to progesterone. But the male professor is still talking about pregnancy because apparently in our 40s, we are still unable to navigate not getting pregnant ourselves. What if my husband's had a vasectomy? Maybe I'm a lesbian. Maybe I'm on an IUD. Maybe I hate sex. What the fuck response was that from him? Really? The only thing a woman has to consider is reproduction? Maybe she just wants her estrogen and progesterone levels to be like they were when she was younger, so she doesn't feel like screaming at her family all the time. Or she wants to stop crying every 2 seconds. Or maybe she doesn't want to feel so tired and run down. Or maybe she's fucking over the fact that she has reoccurring shoulder or sore joints. Or she wants to remember where she put the freaking keys. Nope, it's still about freaking pregnancy. But I don't want this to be a platform to bash the inadequacies of doctors, many of whom haven't received adequate training on the female transition because it hasn't been a priority in medical education. They really are overworked and they're trying their best to keep up with an ever-changing medical system. But this does not mean that as women, it's acceptable for our voices not to be heard, nor is it acceptable for our ailments to be left untreated and for our health to be disregarded. So, my dear lady gardeners, this is why we must educate ourselves on what our vajayjays are capable of and how strong they can be. Let's reclaim the word pussy as a symbol of strength. We all know that growing a set of balls won't give you any power. That is every man's Achilles. Let's not grow them. Let's grow our knowledge on the female body and womanhood so we can make informed decisions about our health. And why do we need to be educated? Because half the time, the medical system isn't adequately informed about female hormones and vaginas. Their response is often, here's a script for antidepressants, or here's a pill for high cholesterol, because they've been trained to treat the problems, not the causes. And for many of the medical cohort, they don't even know what the causes are. So let's take this journey together as we delve into the wild and valiant world of having a vagina. They are vivacious, valiant, vibrant, vigorous, versatile, vulnerable, virtuous, vivid, and victorious. Knowledge is power, power is wisdom, and a wise vagina is an informed vagina. Together, we are changing the narrative around having a vagina. They're not just victorious, vibrant, volatile, but they are also valiant. I'm Lady Garden, pussy, fluffy, hoo-ha proud. And if you have a vagina, own it. And if you're listening all the way to the end of this podcast, you should be fucking pussy freaking proud too. My goal is to bring a voice to the owners of vaginas and bridge the gap between scientific and medical language and put it into terms that we can all understand. I know that scientific language can be overwhelming, with tons of information and numbers being thrown around, and it often comes with many inconsistencies. I'm here to condense it, make it easier to grasp, and provide you with links to further research if you wish to delve deeper into these topics that we discuss on the podcast. Here's a little teaser for our next podcast dropping Friday, and it's all about vaginas, ladies. Enjoy. We are going to start from the beginning. JJs, the hoo-ha, the fluffy, the vajayjay, the lady garden, the peach, the flower, the honey pot, the cupcake, the kitty, the muff, the pink palace, the taco, the fanny, the foo-foo, the coochie, the beaver, the vault, the pussy. I don't think a man's penis has as many nicknames. No wonder we're so freaking confused. We don't even know what to call it. We'll talk about the vagina. Till next time, my beautiful vaginas, water those lady gardens because they are worth it. Please note that this podcast is for entertainment purposes and informational purposes only. The content shared is not intended as medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider for any medical concerns or before making any health-related decisions. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and guests, and it does not represent those of any medical organization or institution.